Record.
Recording.
Yay.
Yay.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
And welcome, everybody, to episode 148 of CONSERVATISH. My name is Peter Edgar Feliciano. Make sure you find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano and TikTok at CONSERVATISH. And get my album. It's available everywhere, Spotify, whatever. I'm amazing at music. And, and you can support this podcast at patreon.com/conservatish. I'm going to be revamping my Patreon to make it more friendly. And, well, maybe I might talk about that. I might not. We'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is Mark Hughes. Yay!
Hey.
Where can people find you, please?
Mark Hughes, comic or comedian. One variation of those or the other on any social media platform.
Okay. And do you have any shows coming up?
Nothing. I have a private show in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada that most of the people who are listening to this aren't invited to. So.
Okay. And not just because of the location, but also because it's a private show.
The thing is because it's in someone's house, most of the guests are going to be his guests. And I'd be very careful. Some of my fans are fucking fucked up, right? Like they still actively smoke crack and shoot heroin and stuff like that. So, which is fine. You do you, boo. But I can't have, or they're just mentally unstable because they're, from the super secret sewing club sometimes. So even if they aren't actively smoking crack or shooting heroin, they're fucked up. So, and I love them. I love them, but I can't bring them to people's houses. That's all.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird thing too when you're a sober person and you get to know people who are not, and they kind of keep you around not just because they're a fan of what you do or they're your friend, but also it almost feels like they've got you on layaway. Like they want to get sober at some point. They're not ready yet, but they're almost like, and not like in an interview process type of way, but just as it like, okay, do I, just in case I want to actually get sober at some point, I might need this person as a life raft. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yes, yeah. I have a lot of. I used to get. I don't get them as much anymore, but I used to get a lot of because I had a fairly active social media presence. I would get the super secret coming down from Coke at 3 a.m. messages, but not from people I knew very well. That was the part that was really uncomfortable.
Okay.
So you're sober, huh? How did you do it? And I'm like, all right, here's how I did it. Then they start arguing. No, but I don't want to. And I'm like, this is how I did it. No, but I don't want to. And I'm like, this is because what you're an abstinence guy. Well, yeah, we're in the same thing. Yeah. Most people, abstinence ain't the in vogue modality anymore, right? No. So as soon as I say abstinence, they go, whoa there, Buster. Right? Like, what about, I just want to quit snorting Coke. I still want to drink and smoke weed. And I'm saying, you asked me how I did it. Right. I'm not preaching anything. And it's one of these things, and anyone who's in the program who might be listening, it might sound like I'm not doing my job as a program member, but what I've learned is when I'm getting messages at 3 a.m. because they're coming down off of Coke, they're not actually interested in the message. It's residual guilt from the fucking I ran out of dope and I can't get a hold of the guy or I have no more money. Yeah. As soon as they sleep it off, I found any time I've successfully undisclosed number stepped someone, it has been a lot more, no pun intended, sober of a question. Mm-hmm. They're not coming down off of Coke. It's more like one day just out of the blue, hey man, I think I might have an issue. What did you do? It's not this kind of wackadoodle way of doing it usually. Now, obviously that probably exists in other people's lives. I've just never had that experience. Anyone I've ever stepped was a very humble approach. Curious kind of. Yeah. Right. Not that I have millions of them, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. One of the ones, I've done a lot of the type where someone who's drunk calls a hotline or something, and you go out there and they're specifically asking for help. Yeah. And those can be useful, but especially I think those aren't necessarily all of a sudden they're changed forever. But you're planting the seed. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, I might want to get sober at some point, and this guy, at the very least, if they learn nothing else, these guys who are sober, who are part of this group, are nice people. You know what I mean? Like, okay, like they were willing to come talk to me at midnight. You know, they were willing to sit down with me. They were even willing to drive me to a detox if I wanted. I don't want it, but you know, they're nice, and that's kind of all you can hope for sometimes. You know?
Yep.
It's pretty
great.
That
took me. My first exposure to the deal was when I was 15 or 16. 26 is when I finally took the plunge. Yeah.
Now you're in Alberta, you said?
No, I'm in British Columbia. I'm in Vancouver, BC. Okay. The show is in Alberta.
I refuse to learn about your shitty country. I just refuse. I'm not gonna.
Hey, baby, baby, you're in the greatest country in the world. You don't need to know about our stupid country. Okay.
Now, when along the line is that actually how you feel? Because you're from Canada, aren't you?
I haven't been to the United States since 1993.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to cross. I'm not even.
I
can't even enter the United States. So.
Oh fucking shit! God damn it! Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a chance for that to get expunged?
There's a chance, but let's put it this way: you can't plan around it. It's not super remote, but it's fairly remote. I have a really bad criminal record, right? So it's. Someone once told me off the record that they don't usually. It's called a U.S. border waiver, so I have to apply to your government to allow me to enter, right? Someone once told me, guys with records like mine, and it's not just that I have a long record, it's not even the severity of offenses, it's the fact that I was always in jail. And like, if you look at my record, it would be like a sentence, then less than 2 months later, I'm arrested and convicted again. They call it a prolific, pervasive pattern of offending. That's what that's what your guys' law enforcement doesn't like. Don't blame them. Because can you imagine you're the guy on the end looking at my file? You sign off on me, and then I go down there and start smoking crack in Vegas because I succumbed to temptation, and then I commit a violent felony. Right. You're the guy who signed off on it. I don't blame. And also, United States is a sovereign country. I don't have a right to enter your country.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, I want to. I really would like to, because Canada sucks for what I do. Sure. I don't hate Canada. I hate parts of it. But if you're an entertainer, shit country. This is a bad country to be in if you're an entertainer.
Now, why? It could not have been all that bad. Kids in the Hall is one of my favorite things in the fucking world, and they did blackface many times.
Yeah.
Or at least multiple.
That was then.
Right, that was then. That was not that long ago, though. I mean, that was like 1990.
Things have changed. Things have changed so much up here, though, and it's not even so much the woke shit. It's just we don't have a population that can sustain an industry here. Plus, the landmass is huge. We're bigger than you guys, but our population is 1/10 the size. Every city is at least 15 major city over 1 million is like 1,500 kilometers away. Huge fucking like you're driving 13 hours to your next major city, right? And ultimately, we're so close to you guys. Why the fuck would we have an industry? We just piggyback off of yours, right?
Right.
Canada has produced some of the greatest American comics ever.
And actors, absolutely. Yeah. I wonder. I do want to talk about blackface real quick since it came up. I feel like if face paint holds you back, you're kind of a bitch. Now, I'm not saying that all black people are bitches, because I think the majority are strong, reasonable motherfuckers. But I think the idea that a stereotype could hold you back, let me rephrase. A stereotype as it was in 1920, 1930, 1940 is different than that fucking stereotype is like 80 goddamn years old. Now, why is that? It's not even a current stereotype, and it wasn't even a stereotype to fucking begin with. It was some asshole the face paint itself was not actually the stereotype. The way they acted, the way that mommy, blah, 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 that type of shit was the stereotype, because they didn't know no fucking black people. Now, this is an 80-year-old stereotype that motherfuckers don't even do anymore. When they do wear blackface, they don't, like they don't do that. They don't soft shoe. They don't do any of that shit. They're often reverent depictions of black people, and yet face paint could hold you back. And I just wanna say to the reasonable, strong black motherfuckers, if face paint holds you back, you're a bitch. Like you're interpersonal, like just you as a person are a weak motherfucker. Do you know what I'm saying?
Remember when our prime minister got caught with the blackface, right?
Yeah.
So I do comedy, and in some of my comedy I do crowd work, right? And I'll ask people, and as always,
right.
I asked a black guy, I said, so that blackface thing with the Justin Trudeau. So I said, what do you care? He goes, only white people care about that shit. I was like, yeah, I know, brother.
Right. Why do you think there's this? Maybe it was just because we felt so guilty for the sins of ourselves, and again, I'm only 45% white or whatever, but maybe the white motherfuckers felt so guilty for the sins of ourselves and the sins of our fathers that we've been, as Colin Quinn puts it, we've been in the middle of the world's longest apology.
Right.
The idea that this, again, reverence comes to black people, and this idea that they're so much cooler than us and so much more like plugged in, and so much they're never corny, they're never stupid, they're never whatever. I think it's incorrect, and not just incorrect. I think it's hurtful to black people, and it's hurtful to white people. It's hurtful to our country. One of the things that a lot of the left has been, because they're always like, this is racial automatically, is this thing about COVID, and they're like, well, COVID disproportionately affects communities of color, as if black people can't be rebellious cunts too.
Right.
Like, you don't know any fucking black people who are just rebellious. I'm not gonna wear a fucking mask. Like, that's a factor. I'm not saying it's the only factor, but you don't even bring it into the fucking conversation. You just sit there and go, a disproportionate number equals bad intention. You're a stupid ass. You don't fucking think all the way back. Think back, step back from the fucking number just for a second, and think that maybe there's a reason why there's a disparity, and not just bad intentions from white people. You know what I mean? Or consequences that have resulted in bad intentions from white people. Sorry, I just needed to
purged. You got it out.
I apologize.
Sometimes
I go on a rant and I'm like, oh, poor Mark. You know what I mean? I'm sorry.
It was like a wound. You just need to squeeze the pus out.
A little bit. I think part of that is because other people feel that too. Have you talked with? I mean, I've seen some of your. So you're a comic, obviously a stand-up comic, and you've talked on social media a lot and on your show a lot. By the way, everybody go check out his
Pulling
podcast.
the Trigger. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Peter was on it.
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
And I think it happens like multiple times a week. Am I crazy?
Technically, I'm semi-retired right now. What that means is I'll release it when I damn well feel like it, because I love my fans, but it's at this point, because of the way the algorithms and all that work, it is a labor of love. I have 1,600 subscribers on my YouTube. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm lucky if I can break 100 views. So I'm just doing it when I feel like it. And one of the things is with the podcast, sorry to interrupt the question you were going to ask, but I started finding it was the same conversations over and over again. I just stopped liking it. I wasn't enjoying it, and I didn't want that to bleed out into the product. So I went, you know what? I'm not going to quit. But before that, it was like, I got to release it once a week no matter what. Got to have a guest no matter what. Got to have something produced. Right. And it's just like, and then the numbers of viewers were going down and down and down and down. And I'm just like, man, okay. As an artist, I'm sure you could probably dig this. I know we're supposed to do it for love and just the enjoyment of creativity and making people smile. Sometimes sometimes I want to get fucking paid, and paid doesn't necessarily mean do re mi either, right? But I didn't see it growing per se, and it sort of started feeling like, so I'm having the same conversations over and over again. Identity, politics, recovery, prison, comedy. Identity, politics, recovery, prison, addiction, comedy. Over, and it's like, And the people are great. Nothing against the guests, but I just personally got bored of it, right?
Right.
Okay, that's fine. You can do things and be bored if you're getting compensated. And I didn't feel I was being compensated. No one owes me anything. No one owes me anything. I put it out. That's the nature of what we do here. You put it out there and you hope people value what you do. And, and I just went, you know what? I'm not going to feel beholden to this once a week thing. I'll just maybe, and if I don't do it again, all right, I'm free to do that. And if I end up releasing 6 a week, then I'm free to do that. And then the next week, if I don't want to do it. And so I even told all my Subscribestar people, stop sending me money. I was making a little bit of money on, not much, but I just said, guys, stop sending me money because I can't guarantee the quality of the product at this point, right? So
I've kind of felt that about my Patreon. Yeah. That's what I was talking about earlier. It's always been a small amount of people, and even when COVID hit, it was, I was like, oh, maybe people will support. But at the same time, I'm doing okay. So I don't feel as tied to it in a desperation mode of feeling like, hey, because there's a lot of motherfuckers, a lot of artists especially, who that was their main thing, either Patreon or gigs or whatever. And so since that's their main source of income, it's kind of like, no, help those guys out. Like, don't really worry about me. But there are a lot of people who want to support. Now, I will ask you a couple of questions. Number one, do you feel like the redundancy was the type of guest, or part of it, even though you love those guests, was it the type of guest you were getting?
Yeah, because I was picking just, these are the topics that I was interested in. I'd see someone, oh, they said something interesting, or I've heard them say something interesting, or et cetera, right?
Right. Do you feel like the redundancy may have been part of the reason why people stopped listening so much?
No, I think it was the algorithms, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay. And then thirdly, I don't know about, like, yes, you're right, that people don't owe us anything.
Yeah.
At the same time. If you don't, I don't want to say if you don't do a certain thing, but I kind of feel like fans are ungrateful. I posted about it earlier. I posted this meme with, the Office Pam.
When they're giving you the fucking advice and shit like that, shut the fuck up, man. Or I'll be like, hey, guys, I've done all the research. All you need to do is, can you just share my thing? That's all I need you to do. Just share it. Just hit share. Have you tried? Have you tried? And I'm like, no. I do the research, so you don't have to. Just hit share, please. I can't share it because my boss is on my phone. Okay, then fuck. I don't know what to do. But have you? Then the fans also, do they do this one to you? And sorry, fans, but if this doesn't apply to you, then don't worry about it.
No, fuck them. Yeah. Fuck them. Yeah. Fuck qualifying.
They won't make a fucking move except give unsolicited advice and say, hey, have you tried this that doesn't involve them? You just watched my shit that took me fucking 4 hours to do for free, man. I'm not even asking you for money. I'm just saying, can you hit fucking share? And all you paid me back with was unsolicited shitty advice. I do this all day, all night. I know how social media marketing works. Don't know everything, but I know a lot. And most of the advice they give, well, have you tried? Yeah, I tried that. Doesn't work. Also, when you do what we do, you know this, Peter. When you do what we do, a lot of the marketing tricks don't work because you get throttled because of the naughty language and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, my Instagram followers have only increased, and yet the engagement has only decreased. I think what happened initially was someone reported it because I said something mean. It might have been, I posted this meme about a year and a half ago of this Asian guy crying, and it said, she invited me over to eat her pussy, and then I realized she started to take down her pants instead of start cooking her cat or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. That's great.
And I'm sure someone reported it because Asians can't handle humor apparently. And actually, by the way, that's one of the, just as a quick aside, that's one of the groups that are actually sensitive bitches. Like normally it's white people going, don't hurt their feelings. But actually, apparently there are roving gangs on Instagram and Instagram pages where they'll send a message to each other and say, hey, did you see this person? And they'll all go and send, your career's over, bitch. And I guess maybe it circles back to this idea that we were just talking about. Often, not always, And you and I are, I mean, I've listened to you had a great conversation with Mike Harlow yesterday. You know, we've listened to each other's stuff. But often people who enjoy artistic endeavors and enjoy the fruits of those labors are not actually artists themselves. They have not created, they have not, and even if they aren't creative people, sometimes they're people who are creative and then just decided, I'm not gonna pull the trigger. I'm gonna go do, I feel more pulled to architecture, or I feel more pulled to HR, or I feel more pulled to, or they've made their decisions. And you and I have made our decisions too. We've decided, fuck it, you know what? I'm just gonna put my neck out there. I'm not just gonna do this art thing or this comedy thing or this music thing or whatever. I'm also gonna put my neck out there expressing unpopular opinions, right?
Yes.
Expressing unpopular jokes. And yet these people, they love the fruits of that, but they don't do the same thing. And so there's a disconnect emotionally from what you and I create and the effort and the labor that you and I put into it that almost makes me want to go, well, fine, fuck you. Like, fine, fuck you. If you don't want to, and we were talking about it on the last one, I think, or on the one I did on your show. I was talking about it with Carrie. At a certain point, if you really enjoy this output, if you really... if it resonates with you, I understand not going to your boss and going, hey, I know you said we have to go to unbiased training, but I'm not gonna go. If that's gonna fire you, I get it. But some way, even if you have to fucking do it anonymously, help. Stop. You don't need to pay me. You don't need to join my Patreon. You don't need to share my stuff. Help. Don't just sit in the wings and just like, oh, everything's going, because this is the fucking message I was thinking about. The cancel culture will come for you. You don't think it will because you keep a very low profile on social media and you don't put any art out there and you don't do it. Will come for fucking you. This is a bully situation, boys and girls. And if you don't fucking help us, fuck you.
Yes. I have nothing to add to that because correct. Yes.
I just feel like, fuck.
No, you and I, we're
Hmm.
in the same boat, buddy. And that's why I semi-retired. Because I was like, I like doing this, but then I don't like doing it, and I don't want to be beholden to it. That's all. Right?
And back in the day when it was Opie and Anthony, doing all kinds of crazy shit, and pushing the boundaries. They had a huge following in New York, right? Huge following actually all over the country. And then
Canada
they did
even.
something that, oh yeah, absolutely.
Internationally, yeah.
But before SiriusXM, they did something that crossed the line too much. and the pressure was not, they didn't need support. I mean, yes, they did live shows, they did whatever. They had supportive people, fans wearing t-shirts and having bumper stickers and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, because they didn't have social media and because this was a much more, kind of widespread thing, they had sponsors.
Right.
They had advertisers. And so the pressure would come to the advertisers. The advertisers would get scared, and they essentially, WNEW, the radio station out here where they were broadcasting out of, canceled them. They just canceled the program. So because you and I don't really, I mean, I think you have one sponsor right now, but
yeah, I'm not collecting money from them though.
Yeah, well,
I just to help, but I'm just whatever, right? Yeah, and it was
Nice.
a great sponsor, but it's not like pay my bill, pay my rent sponsor,
Right.
or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think for me anyway, I don't know what your situation is, but for me, it's grown, and I'm happy about it, and I'm so grateful that I get just a chance to have interesting conversations with people from many different walks of life and blah blah blah. But I don't have sponsors, I don't have, and so there's no pressure there. So, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. My goal with the podcast was, there's a few goals. Career-wise, I wasn't looking to make money off of it per se. I just wanted to build a fan base, so if I did comedy, I'd have people show up to my shows. And that's what I was hoping to make money off of, right?
And that's happened.
Little bit, yeah.
Okay.
It's Yeah, actually, in some ways, it's not too shabby. It's. I mean, again, I can't pay my bills with it, and Canada, it's like 30 people in this city, 20 in that one, and it's not 100 cities. It's maybe 5 that have this sort of. But I mean, if I show up, if I end up in that town, that's some people who will come specifically to see me. That's not me performing in front of an audience with a booker going, "Oh, can you tone it down?" Any of that shit. This is people who want to see my stuff, right? That's cool. The other goal I had with the podcast was I wanted to just have interesting conversations with people about, same as you. It's a similar theme, just stuff you're not supposed to talk about, right? Or whatever. Another one was talk about addiction and recovery in prison, because I'm tired of being the first person anyone's ever met who's been to prison. I'm tired of it. I don't like it. I'm not, and destigmatize is a big fucking word, and it sounds a bit fruity if you ask me, because I think going to prisons to a certain degree should be stigmatized, but I don't like being the only one. So my lofty goal with being public about my fucking criminal past is, if someone meets someone else who's been to prison, they weren't the first one. That's all. Make your judgments on their character after that. But it's not, it's like, oh my God, you were in prison? Hey, is it true what they say happens in the shower? Yes, they always ask me that. Always ask me that. If I got raped. Right. Doesn't matter. Right away, they ask if I got raped while I was in prison.
Right. It's very interesting, actually, just as a quick side note, how, how the Me Too movement pushes for, a girl having a bad date, but says nothing about rape jokes for men. Pretty incredible. Yeah.
I don't think we should stop rape jokes for men, because I think rape jokes are wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
I think any topic is wonderful to joke about. Any. And always they go, yeah, me too. But no, not one. Not a single topic. Because if someone's a comedian, I don't think they should make jokes about anything they don't want to. But don't tell me I can't. And also, let the fucking audience decide. If they don't like it, they won't laugh at the joke. Simple as that. Science, baby.
And it goes back to that thing you were talking about a second ago with throttling. The ultimate decision should be on the audience. If your social media followers, if your YouTube followers went down because people were like, "Fuck this motherfucker,"
then there it was. Yeah,
that's valid, right?
Yeah.
But if YouTube's like, "We know better," we know better than the people who follow you. And speaking of we know better, let's talk about, if you're willing to, the experience you had with
getting raped in prison.
I'm sure you've talked about it a lot, but the experience you had at the end of June with that show that got canceled.
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to ask about getting raped in prison, because let's role play, Peter. You be me, I'll be him.
Sweet.
Yeah, except
I'll get
this
the lube out.
Yeah, and I'll get the face.
Okay
I'll get the shoe polish for.
Yay! It is okay if I masturbate while we record this, right? Okay, so what was your experience? You had booked a show.
Yeah, and I had it sold out as much as you can during COVID, which is, they capped what I could sell the tickets at 50. I had 45 sold the day before.
Wow. Awesome.
And which is for an independent Canadian comic who didn't have any help from the industry is not bad. I'll brag a little bit. And that's thanks to this shit. That's really, right?
Right.
Fans who want to see me do the type of comedy I do. Paid
it wasn't
money
random
to see
people.
It. Yeah. This is not ambushing an unsuspecting. Like, the show was even going to be in a separate part of the bar. That way it didn't interfere with business, right?
Nice.
What more can you ask for? This is just after COVID. The bar had been shut down for 3 months. I'm bringing them business, right? Sounds great. It sounds like everyone's going to have a good time. I have a guy who follows me around and tries to get me canceled. His name's Mark SJW Hughes. And people think we're the same guy. No, we're not.
No.
Mark SJW Hughes posted trying to get the show canceled, as he usually does. He said, hey, look at this piece of shit, Mark Hughes. He's back in town. Why don't we all protest and get the show shut down and kneel on the throat of his career? Right?
Fun.
Laughing at that is hate. But
Right,
how can
exactly.
it be hate when we love it so much? So anyway, someone screen capped that, sent it to the venue with an email saying you should cancel it, and they canceled it.
And
One
again, to
email.
reiterate,
One email.
one person screen
45
who was not going to the show.
Probably not. 45 tickets sold. One email. Yep.
Now I know you don't, or maybe you've even in your response video, which was beautiful.
Yep.
It was a great call to action and a very good recap of what happened. Even in that response video, you did not seem very vitriolic about the venue.
Nah, this comes with the territory. This isn't the first time this has happened to me. I get it. I empathize to a certain degree with venues being afraid of optics and stuff like that. Mostly, but there is a point where I'm like, come on, guys, really?
Right.
Because the venue was saying, and this isn't me being resentful. It's just matter of fact. He said one of the reasons he can't continue with it is he can't risk loss of business. I have 45 tickets sold of people who will purchase booze and food at your venue. 45 people who would not be there otherwise that night. I went there the night that the show didn't happen. There were 10 people in the bar. That would have been 45 to 50 additional people buying drinks. Because of one email? Just doesn't seem, mathematically, it doesn't make sense. If it was a huge Twitter campaign or fucking flooded email. Okay, all right, okay. One email? You could have, as a business owner, he could have emailed the person back the day after the show and go, oh, yeah, I told him. You could have manipulated it and made it everyone happy, right? And that was the part I didn't. He just immediately came to it, and I'm like, and that's his right. I don't believe he has to have a show on his premises that he doesn't want it for whatever reason. There is some contract law involved in that, though.
Right.
You're not just allowed to cancel a show. It doesn't work. Even if it's a verbal contract, they're not allowed to just say it's not happening anymore. Technically, they're supposed to compensate you for whatever you were. But he shouldn't be forced to have a show on if he doesn't want it. Even if he had a personal feeling about the way that the show, the post that in question, even if he's like, I don't agree with that, I support his right to not like that. But if we're going to talk about money, right?
And not just that, if he had reached out to you and said, hey, someone told me about this post you did, please take it down, you would have taken it down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm extremely respectful of stuff like that, but I will speak to the effectiveness. Someone posted yesterday, some person I don't know, and it's always the people I don't really know that I really get emotionally wrapped up in. The people I don't actually care about, I'm like, hey, you better believe this thing that I believe. And they posted about how, well, isn't cancel culture just ultimately what conservatives should be for because it's ultimate capitalism? And I disagreed, and I said, well, yeah, I can understand that maybe back in the day, but this isn't about companies and people genuinely supporting what they actually genuinely believe. This is about shame. This is about public shame. This is about hurting others. This is about this example you're talking about is a perfect example. 45 people voluntarily decided to support filthy, fucked up comedy, and were told they don't get to, and not because that person, I mean, it's not because the venue, the promoter, the owner was actually against your comedy. He was scared. So it's about shame and fear. It's not about genuine capitalism.
No. Okay.
And another beautiful proof of that, because as one word to effectiveness, when everybody a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, was trying to go after Goya, what the fuck happened? right? Goya sales went through the fucking roof. I got messages from a Latin guy, a Latin friend of mine, who's like, he sent me this picture of a shitty grocery store somewhere in the Northeast Bay, and he's like, hey, check this out. it's all fucking gone. They've been buying the shit like a motherfucker. And not just Latin motherfuckers, white motherfuckers who don't know anything about Goya, who are probably ruining dishes right now as we speak. With just, I don't know, throw that adobo on it. See what happens. Although it probably would be good anyway, because adobo is fucking ridiculous. So they had a huge show of support because they said, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want. Barstool Sports tried to have, and they've tried to been canceled many times, but again, a week and a half ago or so, people were like, look at this thing, this race joke that the owner of Barstool Sports allowed on his platform. And the guy, whatever his goddamn name is, Barstool Sports guy, was like, fuck you. You don't cancel me, I cancel you. Right. And look what happened. Nothing. Partially, yes, because he was big enough to that if one sponsor runs away because they're scared, he can grab someone else. There's a long line of sponsors ready to sponsor it, to advertise. But culturally, let's look at the reality of the situation. People, Latin people, who were being told by other half Latin bitches, fucking dumb cunts on Twitter, who were like, you should cancel. We were like, watch this. Here's more of my fucking money. How's that? Same thing happened with Barstool Sports. Their numbers. So like, capitalism-wise, we are speaking. But if we don't have an opportunity to speak, that's the problem.
And that's where people will say things, again, the fans and the dumb things they say. Nothing wrong with bad publicity. And guess how many times they come to my show, the ones who say that, and give me money. That many times.
Right.
That's the part that gets frustrating, because there is no such thing as bad publicity isn't 100% true.
Right.
Especially in the age of social media. And if you're small, bad publicity can fucking do more. It can ruin you. Right? Because it I'm not saying ruin me, because but like, it can make it so I can't get beyond a certain level. It can make it so venues won't allow me to do comedy. It can make it so even fans are scared to show up to shows. Right?
It can make it so that other comics won't book you.
Which is pretty much the case in Canada with me anyway. I've had that problem ever since I've been doing comedy. I can't, about half the comics in Canada I can't work with.
Now, did that happen right away, you said?
Okay, I've been doing comedy 7 years. Okay, comedy's overtaken by the leftists, by the way. So it's run by them, right? And Canada's even more socialist that way than anything you guys got going on down there. And for real socialist, most of our arts are government funded up here. So
most of your what?
The arts are government funded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know, right? And guess which type of people they get kind of deciding who. Okay, right? So comedy up here, there's no real industry, so it's basically run by the artists, the comedians. You get booked by knowing people, and if you're naughty at all, not just on stage and off, the on stage part isn't that big of a deal, but it's a fairly big deciding thing. But you have to pretty well be virtue signaling all the time, or 100% silent. But even that's, the silent ones are starting to be called to task now. So because I don't, a few things. I don't subscribe to their politics and I say whatever I want. I don't hang with comedians. I don't do the networking thing. I'll admit it, I don't. I'm older than a lot of them. I don't drink and I don't do drugs. And comedians aren't that fun off stage half the time. You got to watch what you say. So,
bruh, holy shit, I have to tell you. That's been my experience. Listen, I've had a few comics on my show, and they're wonderful people, and they're fucking hilarious on stage. But sometimes, and I won't say who, sometimes they hop off stage, and you try to have a conversation with them, and they're just, they don't have it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an uncomfortable situation. Maybe they had a bad day that day. But like, overwhelmingly, it's been like, seriously, dude, like fucking just pop with me, please. Just hit a groove with me at some point. And not necessarily do I feel like Although part of it has been like they're afraid of free speech stuff, but mostly it's just like I think they're just awkward motherfuckers on the whole, and they haven't done the work.
The ones I'm talking about are more actors than they are comics, though. They tend to run everything now, so they're the greasy kind of networky types who quickly analyze what the culture is and then adopt that. And then impose it on other people. They're not real comics, I would say. And I know it sounds elitist when I say that, but what I mean by real comic is someone who's just about the joke, about making people laugh. It's their politics is first, just like everything else now, pretty much, right?
Sure.
So because of that, I can't get booked on a lot of shows. I always get told, "Oh, well, Mark, you're so great, but you're a risk. Oh, Mark, you're so great, but you're a risk." I've been doing comedy, and here's the funny thing about that, and not ha-ha funny. I've been doing comedy for 7 years. Except for COVID, on average, 5 to 20 sets a week for 7 years.
Wow.
I have probably had really negative audience problems 10 times or less.
Okay.
My problem has always been with other comics. Always. Okay. Yeah, and they are the gatekeepers.
Will it be a reaction that you get? Sometimes I'm sure when you show up, when they know you or they've seen you, whatever, but will it be a reaction to your face after you get off stage, or will it be more of a subversive kind of
the latter,
passive-aggressive?
Basically, all of a sudden, I just can't seem to get booked on anything. That's just right. And or being told, we're full for the next 7 years. Sorry, right? Sometimes they'll tell me straight up, you're not a fit for the show, which I would appreciate that a lot more. But pretty much half the shows I'm not a fit for. That's the problem, because Canada is known for producing, other than some of those big hits, Kids in the Hall, Trailer Park Boys. Other than those are anomalies for real. Canada's very generalist, middle of the road. We don't want to offend anyone. We're just, that's our country, right? So that's why entertainers it's not known for its entertainment other than those few examples. And as much as I love those examples, I fucking hate them too, because it's no. It's just like when people say in comedy, we're no, Dave Chappelle's still doing his thing. It's for fuck's sakes, man, that guy's an ATM machine. He prints money. Of course he's doing whatever he wants, right? Try starting as Dave Chappelle now, though, without all the heat. That's the difference, right? Dave Chappelle and Bill Burr, they're the last generation of comedians that the industry or the infrastructure will ever help get there. Last ones. Anyone who wants to do comedy in any kind of edgy, subversive, whatever we want to call it way now and doesn't go along with the narrative is going to have to do it all themselves.
And that's where we're going to need to lean on the fans. We're going to need to lean on the quiet ones.
Yep.
I don't know about that. I've listened to Jim Norton a lot. And he always says they say the pendulum is going to swing back the other way. It's not going to. Now, I can understand that. But I also can't run away from the feeling that, and I don't even want to just use an example of red pilling because that's corny shit, to tell you the fucking truth. But I also look to human nature. And how, as an example, the people who have been super Me Too also laughed from their gut. Not from their gut so funny, but aloud and laughed from their nature about the rape joke in Half Baked. You know what I mean? When Harlan Williams was dropping the soap, wash your hands, that was funny to them. That's nature shit. No matter how hard you scrub, you're not gonna. That's why comedy is so beautiful, because it is coming from a place of surprise, and it is coming from a place of mirror. Look at this thing. Patrice O'Neill was one of my is my favorite comedian of all time, and he was amazing at letting the audience finish the sentence.
Right. Yeah.
Right. He would set it up. He would go almost there, and then he would get so flustered or be so in the middle of something that the audience would fill in. He wouldn't have to say a fucking word for the next 5 minutes, and everybody is dying because he's holding up the mirror. That's some nature shit, and you cannot scrub that away. Just like no matter how many times you want to make believe that women don't like to be choked and don't like a confident motherfucker, no matter how many times, I don't know, I just like dorks. No, you don't, baby girl. Like, no, you don't. If you like, you fucking do not. I know you might like it on paper because, well, I want to be all accepting and I like guys. You know, you might like it because you just got out of a relationship and you were so tied up to this confident motherfucker emotionally that you just have to be with somebody, as Patrice used to say, you have to move from a shark to a penguin. I'm gonna date a penguin. The problem is a girl shark is not happy with a penguin. She's not happy with the penguin. The penguin is just excited as shit to like, oh, I just do, yes, dear, whatever you want. I've only had 4 fucking sexual partners my entire life. But there's something, no matter how much you make that the culture, there's something in girls, there's something in humans that will revert back to nature, right? I'm not saying that we haven't evolved, but not that fucking fast. Nor should we if it means that we don't get to say whatever the fuck we want and pay attention to nature.
I don't think comedy will continue to exist. So just to be clear on what I said earlier, I'm saying the industry that we know will never help that comedy again. So comics, people will still laugh. Here's the problem. This is just my observation doing comedy for 7 years. Unfortunately, people have to be told what they like. From a marketing perspective. Once you get in front of them, that's a different story. But to get them from the seat that they're sitting in to the venue to watch, unfortunately, Netflix has to tell them that they're funny. If you're not famous, doing comedy is something I've definitely noticed. People won't go and check you out. It's a funny thing. It's very hard. Not impossible, but you can get, if you have the backing of industry, they can get people to come see you even if you're not very funny. That's the strange thing. And you probably know this from Noah. You've probably seen this with music, similar thing. They'll pump people who are, yeah, you get it. So all I'm saying is the industry infrastructure, agents, managers, bookers, like, they aren't helping anyone who says anything transgressive. It's too much of a risk for them. So we have to do it ourselves by doing shit like this, renting our own venues, having them canceled, rebooking, et cetera, et cetera. So it can be done, but for people, when people go, oh, all this stuff isn't, because one of the arguments you hear from the woke comics is, no, Dave Chappelle and Bill Burr are still selling out theaters. I don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, yeah, but I can have a comedy show canceled with one email. Right? So to pretend it doesn't affect, is it ruining it? No, I don't think so. Does it affect it? Yes.
It's not ruining the mechanism, but it's ruining the ability to get it done.
And the problem,
you and I have the same cup? That is fucking weird. I think I don't have a, wow. No, I think yours is a little more, mine doesn't have as accentuated a curve here.
Oh, it's neat though, eh?
All right. Yeah. Still.
It's the problem syrup? Is not, again, what's that? No, it's just coffee.
Okay.
You're right.
Fuck
you're
you,
right.
Canada.
Yeah. Fuck us. Fuck us. You're right. Sorry. Fuck us. Sorry. The mechanism, the art form can be produced, but it's the transmission is sort of the tricky part. Again, I don't even want to be defeatist. It's going to be tricky. It can be done. I believe it can be done. Now, how big will people be? Maybe we'll just have to be humble and be okay with the 20 or 30 to 50 people in each city, and really just have a job that you make sure can pay the bills, and then it really is for love. I'm okay with that, actually. I'm okay with that for the most part. Sometimes it gets exhausting, though. I will admit that. I'm in more debt now trying to fund my comedy career than I was when I was smoking crack. Not joking. Yeah.
You know how there are some lines that you hear from a conversation, you're like, that's going to be one of those that I use to get people to listen. That's a fucking great line.
And it's because I have to do everything myself because that's it. I can't get help from the system, right? So, okay, right. Not bitching a little bit, but I don't mind bitching a little bit as long as it's followed up with, all right, well, what are you going to do about it, right? Because I do believe it's okay to vent about things and complain about stuff, but don't get stuck there, right?
Right, and I don't want to get stuck either in it, but I think people who listen to us and like us and enjoy our artistic output need to understand what gets put into it, need to understand how much of a sacrifice it is. Because it's not I mean, I literally, I did a GoFundMe about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago now, to start making my album. And I got, my goal was too small. I found out very quickly that making an album is very expensive. But we went over the goal by like $1,200. Now, I blew through that very quickly because, like I said, booking, producer time, gas to get over to the producers, which was an hour away, getting the and the toll, getting the musicians, all the tweaking and the fucking time and energy it takes to make an album. I spent I spent the $4,000 or so, $4,100 or so making the album from the GoFundMe. I guarantee I spent $6,000 at least, $5,000, $6,000 at least of my own cash, and I was fucking destitute at the time. Okay, yeah. So it was a labor of love. But then people want to stream it on Spotify, right? Now, yes, it is a labor of love, but holy fuck. And that's why I look at some people. I'm sure you've had this experience just in 7 years. I've only really been doing music and going and booking shows for probably 8. There's people when you first started where you were like, wow, that motherfucker's funny. And then they just stop. Right? Yep. And there's some people, they don't have it in them and they decide to stop, or they are like, they're not that good. That's the majority, to tell you the fucking truth. They're just not that good, and they thought, I could do this. And maybe they have the kernel or maybe a large amount of potential, but they don't put the work into it to get better, right? So that's one aspect. But there's also people I look back on and I'm like, and I've talked about this on the show before, but people I look back on and I'm like, they just bitched out. You know what I mean? Like, they had great potential and they could have made it better and they could have figured out a fucking way, but they decided, you know what? Nah, I'm just gonna move to Sacramento. Nah, I'm just gonna, I don't know, they just bitched out. You know what I mean? Larry Elder tells a beautiful story about growing up with this motherfucker who was amazing athlete. And he was an amazing athlete, and how he was like always killing it, but he was kind of a dick. Okay, he wouldn't just beat you at whatever the sport was. He would make you feel like an asshole in the process, right? And so in that process, coaches wouldn't work with him. They didn't want to. They would go and talent scouts from colleges went to the high school and were like, "Hey, this guy's amazing." And they asked the coach, "What's your experience with him?" And he said, "Oh, he's a coach killer. He's gonna run you ragged, and he's gonna be a horror to work with. But yes, he's amazing on the fucking field, right?"
Right.
And so Larry talks about how this guy just got jaded and was like, "Oh, things are unfair." And then Larry comes back after college and visits with this guy, and now this guy has changed his name to Cassius whatever as a Muslim, and now he's wearing a do-rag, and now he's all blacked up, and he's talking about to these kids about how the white man's going to keep you down. And Larry's like, "The white man didn't fucking keep you down. You did. Your shitty behavior." Right? You fucking gave up. You stopped pushing. I grew up in a few blocks away from this motherfucker, and he's a failure and I'm not. What's the fucking difference? You know what I mean? And so I kind of, it goes back to that idea of personal decision. You know what I mean? Do you feel like there's as hard as it's been, and as the successes we've had and blah, 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 and you're further along than I am, but like the successes we've had, doesn't a piece of you feel like part of that success is kind of just saying to yourself, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to bitch out.
That's where it all comes from, that right there. Just in my more quiet, sober moments, and that's the other thing, doing this clean and sober, I'm grateful for my sobriety, but it's hard to have, I don't have a lot of peers. They can drink the anxiety and despondency away. Not saying that's ultimately the best thing, but they can at least take the fucking edge off. I'm raw dogging it, baby, right? So, which is fine because I prefer a sober life. But yeah, in my more quiet moments, I sometimes think, is this the best investment of my time and energy? Don't have an answer. Not saying I have one. That's all. That's where the existential kind of, not dread, just it. And also comedy, I don't know if music is like this, but it's very, it can, I got to be careful of the ego with it. Like, I want to get booked. I want to kill. Why didn't I? And I'm like, is this good for me? Also,
Right.
then you deal with the SJW faggots, and that infuriates me. I don't like being around them because I don't know about you. If I stopped doing comedy, I could really easily avoid all these losers. Like I really could. Most people I know aren't like that, right? The only time I'm around them is when I'm doing anything art related, and I'm like, I only know the word intersectional from fucking doing comedy. I don't want to know what that means, man. You know what I mean?
Or from dating websites.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to OkCupid. Fuck you, OkCupid. Every fucking question is like, do you think that abortion should be legal or not? It's like, first of all, that's reductionist as shit.
Yeah.
Secondly, you're doing it to put a pigeonhole on this motherfucker.
Also,
like,
thirdly,
hey,
I
any
know how to
potential-
answer that to get laid. Fuck.
Right, thank you. Any potential bitch who was like, you can't just go, hey, it's fucking complicated. Just as a clarification, yes, I think it should be legal, but the shit's a fucking baby. Stop fucking lying. It's a goddamn kid. Kill your kid, bitch, but call it a fucking kid. Now, but really, it's like, the dating sites are the exact same way. They're trying to put a pigeonhole on you. Now, let me ask you this, because I feel the same way about comedy writers, right? Comedy writers, as funny as they can be, are not the most masculine.
No.
And because they weren't the most masculine growing up, junior high, high school, they didn't get laid a lot. They didn't try out for teams, blah, blah, blah. And so where that more feminine energy comes in is to fill in the gaps. Okay, you know what? My status comes from what books I've read. My status comes from what jokes I can tell. My status comes from the idea that from non-masculine shit. And so where that then fills in all those gaps. And so essentially, of course, it codifies and solidifies into this. Our whole culture believes in emotion. Our whole culture believes in feelings. Our whole culture believes in listening so much that you can't think that a black person could be wrong about their experience, that a black person could be fucking dumb, or that a black person could be rebellious, or that a black person is a fucking human. It codifies and it solidifies. Do you feel like that's part of it?
Yeah. I feel that when I've shown conversations that comedians have online to my non-comic friends, they go, "Oh, who are these fucking people?" Right? And the men talk like groups that the men communicate like women.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a sexist way. Yes, well, I'm being sexist, admittedly. But what I mean is, the women with the cattiness and the passive aggressive and the name calling and the bringing up, that male comedians do that, right? Here's what I can say: the comedy writer that you described, the childhood years of the comedy writer, I was kind of that guy. I wasn't cool in school. I was bullied. I was bullied by women. I don't like admitting it, but I was. I didn't get laid very much. I was fucking a weird kid for my school. And then I started running away from home and doing drugs as a kid and getting molested and fucking, and then for a long time, I talked about this with Mike yesterday. I thought I was gay. And then, out on the streets and in young offender institutions, more sexual abuse. And I don't say all this to paint myself as a victim. I say all that to say this. I didn't know what it was like to be masculine. Prison actually taught me how to be masculine, right? Not the best teacher, but it did do it. I'm grateful for it, right? And then I get out, and I didn't know where I fit, and I was having a hard time getting along with people in the city I live in and the areas I was hanging around in. It's very middle class, so they're all liberal educated and like fucking well socialized. They're socialized to be able to communicate and interact with the social group that they're currently in. I wasn't. I had to learn all that stuff. And comedy was something that gave me something to hold on to that was not my past, that I was actually kind of good at and made me enthusiastic about something. I just don't know if I feel that way about it anymore or not. I don't have an answer. COVID actually made me question, like, I don't know. I don't have answers for it. The sets I've done since we got unlocked have been fun, but we're still not back to normal either. So I don't know if it got back to 5 to 20 sets a week, I'm again, question mark. I don't know if I have it in me to keep doing it or not. I might. I might have a second wind in me. I don't know, right?
Do you, when you're on stage, have you talked about these shitty comics to their face? Maybe not naming them, but
well, I in a sense, the problem is doing it on stage in front of an audience. There's too much context there that I'd have to catch them all up on about how gay the comics are. But sometimes if we're at an open mic, I'll make little remarks like, "Hey, comics in the like." I have a joke where I'm not going to tell the joke, but where I have a joke. Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
You have a joke.
I have a joke. I'm not going to tell the joke, but I make everything okay.
Yeah.
You good?
Sorry.
Nothing broke. I have a joke where I make reference to the audience being the most important part of the show, and it's not it's not in a pandering way. I'm not going to tell the joke because I hate doing that. But sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, comics in the back, did you hear that? The audience is the most important part of the show," because they forget that because they're little fags that just hang out with each other all the time and and they'll claim the audience is the most important part of the show, and you shouldn't shit on the audience only if I don't do well. If they don't do well, okay, Peter, you're pretty versed on pop culture and what's going on right now. When the wokey wokes don't do well in front of audience, what do you think they say?
They make it about identity. They say, they say they
the
don't
audience
like me because I'm a
was
black man or because
the audience didn't laugh at my jokes because they're
Trump supporters or Republican or conservative or
racist, shit like that. Yeah, that's
sexist,
that's
right?
Yeah, that's often what they'll do.
There's a lot of unfunny black people out there, by the way, everybody. Just so you know, there's a lot of unfunny women. There's a lot of unfunny gays. There's a lot of unfunny trans. There's a lot of unfunny trans. Partially, ladies and gentlemen, because you have to take yourself real fucking seriously if you're one of those groups right now. Yeah. I hope we can get to the point, and I've talked about this on the show, I hope that we can get to the point where you can have black villains who are just fucking villains. Remember how Silence of the Lambs, one of the best fucking villains ever. We didn't learn that he was abused as a child, and that's why he's mean. Well, like with Michael fucking B. Jordan in Black Panther. It's because he came from a bad childhood. Like, no, I just want a villain, motherfucker. I just want the Joker from The Dark Knight. You didn't even. They even tried. They played the cup game with why he was as fucked up as he was. Some people just want to watch the world burn. Guess what, boys and girls? Some black people just want to watch the world burn, and that's going to be really interesting when we can get to the point. That's fucking equality, idiots. That's fucking equality.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And
that's artistically interesting.
I just want trannies to be racist like the rest of us.
Yes. And I want them to laugh at themselves. There's a lot of fucking transsexuals who can laugh at themselves, but they've done the fucking healing. They're not precious. They're not precious. What's his fucking name? Buck Angel. God, I want that motherfucker on my show so bad. Born biological female, trans, and still has a vagina and did porn for fucking years and is now like a full-on like activist. Like, hey, these new waves of transsexual or trans people are fucking horrendous. Like they're throwing out the biology. They're shaming people. They're hurting people. The majority, by the way, are men who have turned into women, and that's fine. I'll call you a bitch. I don't give a fuck. But I want Buck Angel on my and Buck Angel not just suffered but has done the work to accept himself and love himself and knew that he was doing the right thing because he did the therapy and this was back in the goddamn 80s 90s. Like, this is an OG motherfucker, and so nothing can blow him down like someone calling him the wrong fucking pronoun, right? That when it's precious, that's a problem, you know. And you know that from your experience. I know that from my experience. When I create a post, even on a dumb, when I'm like, I've worked on this post and and all of a sudden I get expectations in my head about how this is gonna get a certain amount of views and a certain amount of likes and blah, blah, and it's precious to me. And then I share it, and no matter how many likes, no matter how many shares, no matter how many views, I'm like, it's not enough because I made it fucking precious, you know? Anyway.
Yes, and that's one of the things that was stressing me out about comedy before COVID is like, oh, I got to make a career out of this. I got to make this viable. And then COVID came, and it's like, oh no, I like the break actually. So and again back to this this question, these couple questions I have that I don't have the answer to. Maybe I'll have my attitude has shifted where I really will do it for the love. And you know what? It's also okay to be like, no, I don't love it anymore. I'm going to do something else. We're allowed to do that, and that doesn't mean you're a quitter. You're not a quitter necessarily either, right? So, because one lie that some people will say is, if you just work hard enough and keep at it and never quit, it'll all work out. And it's like, well, okay, define work out.
Yeah.
Right? Because what is success? Define it. Because some people will say in comedy, I bet you they say this in music too, if you just work hard and just get really good, they'll come knocking at the door one day and they'll have the record. It's like, no, man, that's like a lot of people that never happens for. Doesn't mean they weren't successful in their own way, but it doesn't,
But yes and no. I will push back on this one. And the reason why I think is because sometimes, like you said, different definitions of how long that's going to last, different definitions of what success looks like. But I also feel, and not to there's a couple of things. Number one, I feel like that stupid saying that we sometimes hear in our group, don't quit before the miracle happens, that kind of applies in some ways. Now, the definition of what miracle means could mean, I don't give a fuck, I'm free on stage. I don't give a fuck, I'm free, like, artistically, right?
Right.
The definition of miracle could mean I'm at least financially stable doing what I love, right? That could be the miracle. But I also think, not just the don't quit before the miracle happens, but I also think that the other part of that is, and this gets us into a weird area, but I'm gonna dip my toe into it with you, and I already know the other side of it. I already know that internally I need to have freedom, and I have the freedom to do whatever the fuck I want, and I don't owe anybody. But I kind of feel like we do. I kind of feel like we owe it to those who have come before us, the Patrice O'Neills, the George Carlins, the Richard Pryors. I feel like a piece of it is we do owe the humans, the quiet humans out there who are getting canceled and getting ravaged by these mobs. We do owe it to our kids and our kids' kids to not let Marxism and socialism happen here. Like, I feel like we do kind of owe, not sacrifice my life, but in a way, I feel like we kind of do owe it to them not to just be, not to just go live in a cabin somewhere. If we have this gift that you and I have, if we have this interest, I feel like a piece of it is, fuck it, I'm just going to be headlong towards these cunts.
I can get behind that. But I also, I'm just going to say, I do have to admit my humanity, and sometimes I don't know how much I have it in me. Even if it's quitting, I'm like, man, I'm in a lot of debt. I'm probably unemployable because of the shit I put out online. Like, if anyone ever Google searched me, I'm fucking toast on a job interview, right? You know what I mean?
It depends on the job. Depends
True.
on the institution or on the industry. I was thinking about that. If you're worried, there's a lot of people, have been. I got another message today from somebody who's a fan. He's like, I've been listening to your last episode. Thank you for what you do. I'm about to go into another unbiasing training online at my job, and a piece of me feels like, okay, but just like you and I are helpful to the pendulum or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Helpful to the souls out there who are struggling for good comedy or good music, or at least to not feel like I'm a bad person because of who I am, because of my white tone. That Red Bull recently fired a bunch of motherfuckers who are woke.
Yep.
Barstool Sports, Goya. There's a growing number of people.
True.
Who and if we join that cause and we champion them,
and maybe you're right. Just maybe now I just need to hold on. You're right. I'll be honest. I'm starting to see this stuff. You're absolutely right. A few months ago, I wasn't. I was thinking the algorithms are throttling my shit so fucking bad. Even though people are at home with nothing to do, my algorithms my views are fucking terrible. Like, I don't know. And so one cool thing that's come out of COVID is some of the biggest gay lords in comedy have been ravaged by it. So a forest fire has happened, and now some fucking a phoenix can rise from the ashes like the South will rise again.
Yes, exactly.
Full on fucking Confederate flag. Yeah,
Fuck
baby. Yeah. So you're right. You make good points, Peter Feliciano.
That sounds like I'm Italian.
How do you say your name?
Feliciano.
Feliciano. Sorry.
I said it at the start of the show. What a
Yeah,
horrible
but
person you are.
I was thinking about myself. Fuck off.
I know. You eat SpaghettiOs and you're like, oh, this reminds me.
I eat maple syrup, bitch.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll start wrapping up in a second.
Yeah, sure.
But what time is it? 5:38. We're good. So, what about the successes as well? Because obviously we talk a lot about that type of thing, and we were just talking about companies who are. I love how full of shit I am, by the way, because I've been saying about throughout the show. But what about the small successes? I'm sure you received not just support on the QT, but also what about support from comics? Are there any comics in Canada in your area who you want to shout out?
Comedy, okay, for the longest time, I wasn't getting any support from the comics. I was on my own, right? Because I'd get the quiet support, but like that's only helpful to a certain degree. Like I need you to book me on shows, assholes. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's nice that you love my comedy, but like, can you put in a fucking good word for me? Oh no, I can't do that. You're too much of a risk, man. But I love what you do. Thanks for fighting the good fight. Yeah, thanks, bro. Right? It's starting. What happened was, as hard as it's been, and as much as I've been complaining and whining, I stuck it out long enough to get pretty damn good at what I do. For the amount of time I've been doing it, always room to grow, always room to improve, lots of time to get better. But people started seeing me, and I'm not bragging, just what happened. They started seeing me as a bit of a role model, something to like, oh, if he can do it, and he was doing it by himself, maybe I can. We don't need to be like him, but there's room. Someone once told me after I left Vancouver to go to Toronto, they felt like they didn't have as much freedom to try jokes on stage once I was gone. That was nice to hear, right? Because I always went, you know what? I'll do my best to get along with these people off stage, but on stage, I don't give a fuck, man. I'm joking because I'm not getting paid. If the only payment is enjoyment, I'm having fun up here, and that means saying whatever I want. Always with the thing is, something some people should understand is, I may say wild and crazy and offensive stuff. The goal is always to laugh. It's not just to say fucked up shit. I want people to laugh. So even if I say something racist, transphobic, et cetera, the goal was to make you laugh. It wasn't just to read a manifesto. Right. You know what I mean? And people are like, yeah, but there's racist people in comedy. Yeah, but they don't last very long if they're not funny. They really don't. There is an ecosystem that, because if it's not funny, if it's just saying racist or problematic stuff, you're not fulfilling your end of the agreement, and the audience is going to be like, oh, this is dumb, right? So,
yeah. There's a saying Jerry Seinfeld says regarding comedy is like it has to be that 10 minutes, 15 minutes you're up on stage has to be the best part of your life, or you're not going to want to do it.
And it is. Right. It's again, the hard part is just getting up. Is everything leading up to that 15 minutes is the tough part, because comedy, the on stage part's the smallest part of comedy. Living the life of a comic.
But I will harken back to that idea though that I said a second ago or a few minutes ago about not necessarily talking shit directly to their faces.
Yeah.
But I feel like part of not just my small success, but also part of my joy around what I do is going, I'm going to say not just whatever I want, I'm going to turn it back to them. And there's a careful way to do it, a funny way to do it, and not just I'm going to read a manifesto. But I came out with that song called That's Why You've Got Haters, which is literally about shitty rappers complaining about not getting, I have haters because I'm doing good. Like, no, douchebag, you have haters because you're not a good rapper. You have haters because you don't even care about hip hop. You don't even give a fuck. You would be just as happy if someone said, "Here's $1 million, suck a dick or be on a reality show." You would do that.
Right.
You have no principle. You have no talent, and fuck you. And that's essentially what I did. Now, like I said, I did it in a careful way. I wrote it, and I spent 2 years fucking recording the shit and putting horns on it, and it's beautiful, and it's one of my favorite things I've ever done. But that was not just immensely freeing. It struck a chord. It struck a chord which caused me more small, but it caused me more success. Because I was like, you know what? Fuck it. You know what I mean? Because part of my struggle and frustration with the whole idea was this cocksucker Little Yachty has millions of views and shit. He's got a fucking house and and I'm struggling even though I'm like working on my music. All right, you know what? I'll turn this magic magnifying mind that creates things on you. I'll fucking turn it on you. And it struck a chord with motherfuckers who were like, yeah, I hate that cunt too. Yeah, I feel that in my belly, that natural aversion to what the fuck. I don't know why I don't like him, or I know like maybe I'll listen to him, but it's cheap. And I put a mirror up. This is why it's cheap, because he doesn't give a fuck, right? So maybe there's something to that with you where you could be like, hey, I'm not, let me back up. I'm not giving you advice. That is not what I'm doing. I'd like to just hear from you. What do you think about that idea of leaning more into the fray of not directly to their faces, but having jokes about jokes and jokes about comedy and how, and holding a mirror up. I know you might only be able to do it at open mics, but just being like, hey audience, this is what's going on behind the scenes.
And I've actually thought that, and I've thought like, okay, maybe it's time to start I do it on my podcast all the time. My biggest thing I'm saying lately is, audience, just so you know, comics are the biggest fags. They are the ones gatekeeping what you want. Comics and people comedy adjacent are the people preventing you from seeing what you want to see the most. And so then I talk about that shit. So you might have a point. It might be time to write jokes where I have to educate people on how lame comedians are, right? It might be because it's like, and I don't mean I have a message, but the thing that always prevented me from doing it before is as soon as you say comics are fags, people don't believe that because they think, oh no, Patrice, Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr. It's like, no, I almost wish these guys didn't exist because that's what everyone thinks they are. And it's like, no, they're fucking not like that, man. That's not most of them. Right? They're who they are because they weren't like that to a certain degree, right? And it's so I always felt like, all right, if I'm gonna write a joke about this, fuck, I have to do a history lesson, or I have to do kind of like a lesson on what the culture of comedy off stage is like, right? And I was like, fuck, I don't know, is that good? I don't know if that, yeah,
right. And it takes a lot of work to get that done in order to make it funny, but that doesn't mean it's impossible.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean it's impossible.
And the amount of juice and effort you put into it will make it that much more valuable because what a lot of I don't know why I want to say incendiary, but like lasting bits and lasting music and lasting is because you can feel in your belly, the audience can feel it naturally that this is thoughtful, and you can't think your way out of it. Right. You know what I mean? Someone years down the line might go, here's why this is bad. But the reason why, Dum Dum, who's that bitch who did that? Douglas. She did that, Nanette.
Oh, no, I forgot her name. Hannah Gadsby.
There you go. The reason why she might be like a little bit popular with the dykes in Australia, but outside of that, she's not going to last very long. And she isn't. She came out with a second special and we didn't hear about it, is because it's cheap. You know what I mean? I know she feels like, well, I spent a lot of time and effort. Time and effort isn't the only thing that's expensive. Right. It's also give a fuck about the art that you're doing. Not, I'm going to poke holes in it and I'm going to say, I was raped, so that means you can't have fun. That's not valuable, okay? Right. Because just because you have an experience that I don't have doesn't mean I don't get to have the experience that I want, right?
Right.
And the other thing is that when it's not just value that people can feel. It's also when you pull the wool. When you say, hey, these comics have no fucking clothes, and you do it in a fucking smart, you can't think your way or joke your way out of this box. I'm about to put you in, cocksucker, because you have no fucking clothes, and I pull the wool off your ass. All of a sudden, it'll make them panic, and they'll show their teeth more. They'll show their ass more, and you'll have more. That's what I felt like with this small, stupid. It only has like 2,000 fucking views, but like that's what I feel with like this song was, because it was good. It wasn't just me with a ukulele. It was good, and it had value because it struck a chord.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
It might actually be more sketch worthy. That might be a sketch more than stand-up. That's what just sort of occurred to me. That might be the way to go rather than. It could work into a bit too. The only thing is, I want it to come a bit more organically because I don't like going in with an agenda.
Sure.
It's more my creative process is more a thought comes to me, and then I go, oh,
Right.
okay. But if I go,
Right.
I have a message. Guess who else does that?
Yeah.
And then they reverse engineer the joke around the message, and that always isn't. It should be. My rule is it should be funny, and if it happens to have a message, cool. But I shouldn't have gone in there trying to educate people either.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
But maybe this. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But maybe this is not message based, but feeling is the impetus. Feeling.
Right.
I have this feeling. I need to fucking express it, and I want to shoot these cocksuckers in their fucking wallets. How do I do that? How do I pull the wool off? And not like a message, like per se, although that is a valid point. I feel like, again, it's serving a higher purpose for the comics coming in behind you. It's serving a higher purpose for yourself. And it's not inorganic. It's just, okay, maybe this is one of the ways, because the organic feeling is, fuck you faggots. But the way, that's the organic feeling. How do I express that in a way that is also engaging to a group of motherfuckers who have no idea about comedy, but turns this spotlight on them, on the people behind them who are chuckling in the corner and killing my fucking career. Fuck these motherfuckers. I don't know. So, but again, I've never really done stand-up comedy, so what the fuck do I know?
Have you tried a podcast? Do you have a podcast?
Right.
Hey, why don't you post it on, like, cut it up into clips and post it on Twitter? Have you tried that, Peter?
I've had a lot of weird success on TikTok, by the way. Weird little success, but it's always the stuff that doesn't necessarily aren't necessarily. I don't know if that's true. I don't know.
1 out of 5. I gave up on TikTok because 1 out of 5 of my videos get taken down. So I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. I don't care anymore.
Well, it hasn't happened to me yet. Thanks, Chinks. We have to thank you, Chinks, for not realizing. As soon as I do an anti-chink video, then we'll
that'll be the end of it.
Taken down. Oh, by the way, just as a quick side, China is horrendous. Holy shit. They're putting Muslims and Christians in fucking camps and shit. And we're just like, you said a bad word. We're going to get rid of Aunt Jemima. You see? Don't you fucking say.
Yeah.
Idiot ass motherfucking white cunts.
Well, in Canada, one of the things is we're supposed to care about what police brutality in the United States. We're commanded to by the leftist woke maniacs. But if you go, hey, wait a minute, what about like Libya and China? They go, why are you bringing these things up? And it's like, well, if we're going to arbitrarily pick which country's issues I have to care about, why can't I care about these ones too? Right?
See, the reason why you're only allowed to care about the ones, the Canada and the America doing bad things is because they're white. Brown people don't do anything bad, and when they do something bad, it's because they had a bad childhood. We need to just not understand. It's because of the culture they grew up in. They're beating women in the streets to death with stones, cocksucker. As I swear to God, last thing maybe, is this fucking cocksucker, this black motherfucker, boys and girls. Oh no, what's he gonna say? A black guy went into a laundromat with a machete a few days ago in Portland, Oregon, and started hacking women. And then he went back outside, and and the cops came and were like, "Hey, drop the fucking machete." And he's like, "No, I'm gonna make you shoot me." Okay. Now he just hacked women in a fucking laundromat Okay, and then when they finally got the guy, they shot the guy with not real
rubber
bullets, just
or something. Yeah.
They got him down to the fucking ground, took the machete away from him, and were trying to get it to calm down. And guess what happened? Because it was Portland, Oregon. A bunch of fucking protesters with their fucking video screens were like, "Yeah, fucking pig, blah blah blah. You leave that guy alone." They were interrupting. He hacked women in a fucking laundromat. You fucking woke peeps. Ah. That's the loudest I've ever screamed on this podcast. But you don't care because he's black, because you're racist. Fucking die, Marxist cunt, piece of shit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You get passionate like I do. I just got in a fight. Let me close with this because I was talking about you before. It's on my mind. It's been bugging me the whole time. Got in an argument with someone just before you and I started recording. It was on Facebook. It's just some weird DMing back and forth, and we were just talking about socialism. And I said, yeah, some of the ideas are okay. I just think like social welfare, I think should have limits. And I said, okay, just for context, I'm not allowed to own a gun. I have a lifetime firearms prohibition. I'm never allowed to touch one ever again. Don't worry, I earned that. And I was doing 8 years in prison for a home invasion robbery. So I went into someone's house, held a meat cleaver to his throat in front of his family, and demanded money from him, right? I believe that you should be able to have a gun to protect yourself from me. I believe that. And we got in an argument about that because based on a previous argument, the person had said to me, yeah, but aren't you glad that you're alive, that he didn't kill you? And I'm like, yeah, but I think he should have had the right to kill me. It would, like, I believe he should have the right. And I said, and in the argument, I also said, as a former violent criminal, I don't even want a gun. I abuse the right. I don't even think I should be allowed to have them. I think that you should have the right to defend yourself against me, guys like me, right? Also, I've been the victim of violent crime. When I was getting raped, I would have liked a gun. Would have come in real handy, right? I've been sexually assaulted a few times, but, I mean, look at me.
Right.
Yeah, baby. One of the rapists, the main one, the worst one that I ever had, went on 3 years later to abduct, rape, and murder a 10-year-old girl. So I called this person in the DMs when we were chatting. I said, I know you're not going to get this because you're a bleeding heart. Probably shouldn't have said that. It was a soft name calling. I admit it though. I take responsibility. Then it just deteriorated from there, and I feel bad about it because I don't like having arguments like that. But there is a part of me that one of the reasons I get upset, I can get pretty upset about that one. And again, I don't want a gun. I abused weapons, right? I don't think that people go, no, but we shouldn't have guns. Why is it that you're not, when I'm okay, it might be an extreme example, but it's still lived experience. Why aren't you allowed to defend yourself against me? Why do we have to rely on the police that are apparently going to be defunded soon? You know what I'm saying? And so I can get a bit sensitive about that one because it's almost in some ways it's I don't know if it really is or not, but it's kind of like sort of an honor to the victims of my crimes to a certain degree. It's kind of like I feel bad for them, and it's like, really? You're going to say no, they shouldn't have? Hard sell, man. And she made a good point. She said, just because I haven't had these things happen to me means I don't get an opinion on it. That's not really what I said. But anyway, it's a point. It is a valid point. Anyway, then she blocked me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're all kind of doing the best we can, and it probably happened because, I mean, I think a lot of these liberals only see stuff. They're in the echo chamber, you know what I mean? And so people who straddle the line, and I said this in the last episode, but people who straddle the line have a duty to, you know, be more careful with the way they post things, and then when they do post, be ready to defend it because a lot of people don't have access. I'm going to post this thing, I think either today or tomorrow, the 3rd edition of People of Color Do Horrible Things All the Time, Just Like Whites. And the goal of it is mostly to humanize people of color. because I don't think they're just abstract victims. I think they're a mix, like all humans, of oppressed and oppressor. But the one tomorrow is going to be black people doing the horrible thing of disagreeing with Black Lives Matter.
Right.
And it's all amateurs. It's nobody on Fox News or whatever. But I know that these liberal people just don't see that. So when they say listen to black voices, they just don't know any black voices who are dissenting.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yep.
You know, this lady that you're talking about probably just doesn't know. She only is seeing stuff that's going to make her heart go, oh. You know?
Right. And the thing is with me, and something I have to keep in mind just for everyone's own good is, and I'm not trying to say this to be terminally unique, most people in normal life don't meet a guy like me. They just don't. Like a guy who's kind of say, I've been the victim of crime, and I've been the perpetrator of crime, and I've been to prison, and I've been beaten up by cops, and I've did all these things, right? Like, and I have to remember for everyone's own good, maybe be a bit patient with people, because so I'm giving myself one smack for saying mean things not fighting fairly.
Right. Do 42 Hail Marys and then,
okay.
Please plug your stuff, please.
You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram at Mark Hughes Comic or Mark Hughes Comedian. It's easy to find. Unless I'm shadow banned right now, which I very well could be. In which case, oh well, then that's the way it goes too, right? So.
Well, and subscribe to your YouTube.
Yeah. Mark Hughes Comedian, I think is what. Yeah, YouTube Mark Hughes Comedian. Yeah.
Awesome. And if anybody who is in Canada wants to book him for a private show, let him know.
MarkHughesComedy.com. You can just email me. Yeah.
There you go. But not in America, unfortunately, for now.
Not anywhere. We can't really travel anywhere right now.
Oh, well, I mean, not intercountry. Maybe that's.
I think you could. I mean, it'd be hard.
I went to the Bay last week, but
right. Yeah, but I don't think I could go to England right now. That might be a tough one.
Not. Right. Yeah. You don't want to get attacked with acid anyway.
No.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody, please make sure you subscribe. Make sure you find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano and on Facebook and on Twitter at Rule62Peter or Rule62Pete. And on TikTok at Conservatish. And I love you all very much. Oh, and quick shout out, everybody. If you know of an immigrant, I'm trying to do a couple of episodes with people who are legal or illegal immigrants who actually enjoy America. So please let me know. Because I've gotten a lot of silent DMs from people like, hey, I'm an immigrant and I don't know why these white motherfuckers are sticking up for me on 4th of July saying fuck America. Is like, I'm having a great time. Fuck Sri Lanka. So there's going to be, so if you know somebody, they can be anonymous as well. They don't have to be out there. But let me know. And thank you everybody. And thank you so much, Mark, for coming on the show.
Konnichiwa.
I actually could do it really well with the. I'm gonna go drive a Prius very badly.
I don't believe in cancel culture because I can't pronounce it.
Yay! Thank you so much again, Mark. I appreciate you, dude.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye.